Welcome one and all to our weekly IT news and bits and such tonight. Our recurring weekly, mostly security horror show. While we wait for others to tune in as usual, shortly our list of what we have done this week, allowing people to tune in and such. So we have done videos. We have done, where would be the first one of those random? So we have done, App Store, Hiccup. What was that even? The week was so busy. Something with our app. Whatever. Anyway, something. Reverse engineering, poking on protocols, looking on bits and pieces, hex numbers, diff, and all your command line utilities, SED and stuff like this, and a short look on link time optimizations, how much faster and smaller was that in that small sample size of a quick test of ours. Is this even here? The stream is public, you never know with this modern YouTube interfaces. So with that, it's time to start this news. Some amazing and some not as amazing stuff happened this week. So on the not so amazing side, how US tech giants are helping to build China's surveillance state. Of course, surveillance state, in my opinion, usually not the most amazing. Leave me in the comments if you agree or not agree. Founded by tech giants Google, IBM, is working, so an American organization is working with companies that is helping China's authoritarian government conducting mass surveillance. So raise your hand if you are surprised. We also have seen the Snowden paper. I'm also slightly irritated after all the Snowden papers that we are not yet more often talk about the surveillance state of the Western societies, America, Great Britain, France, Germany, and everyone else in between, you name it. Certainly not a Chinese phenomenon here, but very worrisome in general. Also, it with all the people who said in East Germany or wherever, or Soviet Union, why have people not done something? I wish people would nowadays do more. There are people like Snowden, Chelsea Manning and such, but where is the rest of the public? And certainly there were extremely huge protests in Hong Kong, but where are the huge protests in the USA or Great Britain for that matter? So varying stuff also in this day and age where everything needs to be commercialized, profit over profit and growth and such. So just what you would expect from this kind of companies maximizing their profit. Speaking about mass surveillance, man in the middle attack on all HTTPS traffic in Kazakhstan. Just that you are aware where it starts, how it starts. And Matthew Green here, of course, known security researcher or teacher of cryptography, Johns Hopkins. And here is a certificate. So what happened apparently is that people, their providers and people are forced to install some kind of wildcard or not wildcard government. Here's this installation of CarsNet trust certificate. Just what, and by the way, where is the outrage, right? If you say they are so evil, how can they do this, and so on. Keep in mind that the Western states, led by the US and UK and Germany and France and everyone, and Australia, this are all the politicians, even Western politicians, wet dreams, unfortunately, extremely disgusting. And this is exactly when US politicians constantly repeat surveillance and so on. This is what they mean. Government ruled certificate that they can intercept and man in the middle all your traffic. And those who think, but Rene, this is just for the terrorists. There is nothing like just for the terrorists. There is either there are government certificates or there aren't. And we have seen in the whole Western world that even there it's usually misused for all kind of small crime or police spying on the neighbor and fun stuff like that. Then in similar news, when Google always says they are the most amazing, super top-notch security, the most stable and whatnot, also Google Project Zero and stuff like this, right? It's how stable is Chrome, yeah, security fixes and rewards. There is even, was here not similar list? So this was a stable channel. Here was bug details link may kept restricted until majority of, yeah, so there are major V8 stealed frozen elements cause crash, and so 2 CVEs, and font size may expose sensitive information. It's like font size may what, where you wonder what, wait, what, but yeah. Of course, they thank all the security researchers for all the discoveries and security were detected by sanitization. So so much to Google Project Zero, exposing all the other vendors, Microsoft, you name it, bugs, Apple and Safari, and there are your Chrome font sizes and Java script just in time compile. What you're not redirected soon, use this link. I should have probably opened them all, so much to that. In more amazing news, there are some people having fun stuff with vintage and retro stuff on consoles and Amiga controllers. So here's from NES fame. This is a really cool post that I somehow stumbled accidentally over or something. And actually I think that I not wanted to... so there is Mario 64. It is apparently lagging because Nintendo forgot to compile the code with O2 with a higher level or optimization, and the forks who decompiled the game to see that in turn compiles to the original ROM with O0 also can be built with O2, and it's substantially faster, so much to when you wonder this vintage and retro, well, back in the day it wasn't vintage, back in the day this was kind of state of the art, at least state of the art for the price point anyway. And so when you were thinking as kid, man, were this games amazing looking and nice to play and smooth and whatnot, imagine also we had this in other news, someone implemented this for this, made some games faster for this later hardware revision, whatever, add-on cartridge stuff or faster CPU or something. But imagine how much more amazing some games could have been if they were not compiled with optimizations. And a really curious find in my opinion. And someone wrote here that maybe this is not like forgotten, but done intentionally. Maybe they were so late in the schedule that the developers were using O0. By the way, I think this is a special MIPS compiler running on maybe SGI or something. I think they're right here that something of that sort, IRIX or something. I think you mean IRIX, wasn't IRIX. It's like Iris development options or something, apparently, maybe. And so maybe they did this intentionally because they were late to release and they didn't want to last minute introduce bugs for changing optimizations and then random optimizations breaking the game logic in random ways. So maybe not as much as forgotten as maybe intentionally, but a curious find nonetheless. In similar curious find, one of those comments there writes that someone doesn't entirely remember, but he saw somewhere like some code in some other game causes hardware to redraw all sprites twice, which is why the game easily lags like crazy. And maybe that was here, whatever, Metal Slug 2 or whatever. Maybe this is also a curious find, like drawing all hardware twice and essentially taxing your graphics hardware twice as much, redrawing everything twice, certainly not the most amazing idea most of the time. In similar Nintendo fame news, something that I just came across today, although I just realized it's already from June. Anyway, so another curious find for those who like this vintage retro stuff and hardware and as such. Someone maybe writing some emulator, I guess, saying that the Zelda screen transitions are relying on undefined behavior. So he is speculating there. I wrote over this. In general, I find this stuff quite interesting. I wish even modern developers would read things like this to better understand how hardware really works, or computers and graphic and programming efficiently and such. So he's explaining how this graphic works with really cool animations, probably dumped out of the emulator. And so he is saying that as far as he understands, there are no public specifications, but he thinks this kind of scrolling here in this game, I think, what is it, vertical scrolling or something, is relying on undefined behavior that only works like kind of accidentally. And yeah, maybe the developers found this or talked with the hardware guys or something, and then were really indeed using some previously not thought through but just working by accident, yeah, like changing registers in unexpected ways during the screen refresh and stuff like this. Interesting read, not only for the undefined behavior, but also how this extremely resource constrained hardware game consoles back in the day were doing this fancy graphic effects. Maybe later. And in other news, there was this FaceApp controversy, a Russian face aging app, a danger to your privacy, and why this probably doesn't come to a surprise to many of you. I wanted to specifically point out the double standards. If this would have been a Silicon Valley app, like if this would have been from Facebook or Instagram or even Apple or whatsoever, nobody would speak about this. Everyone would be like, hey, yeah, that's cool, and share these photos, which I think even still people shared this photos and whatnot. But I find it really double standard as usual, just with the news previously with Kazakhstan certificate. The usual, when something is done in America, then everything is amazing. And even when we in Germany point out, yeah, but data protection and maybe it's too dangerous to share this, put everything in the cloud and such. It needs a Russian face app for the American media to wake up and call this out. I really wonder, raise your hand and leave in the comments below what you think. If this would be, maybe from Facebook, the controversy would be also a little bit because Facebook has just so much criticism with all the fake news and election interference by ads and such. But if it, let's say, if it would be something less controversial than Facebook, if this would have been Apple or Google or some independent developer in the Silicon, or a new startup in Silicon Valley, raise your hand of how many news outlets would have called this out. I would think very few. But yeah, so the danger is real also. And then people, I recently said I made this video about our credit card bank end user license agreement there that came with 20 pages or something. And even then people here with this FaceApp journalists rightfully, of course, called out that with using the app, you basically sign off and give all your rights away. Basically, there was something, is it here covered in this article or maybe not, but basically then there you see the double standards, right? Who is reading the end user license agreement of Microsoft Windows or Facebook or even the App Store and stuff like this. But when it's a Russian app, then people suddenly start to think about this and read the end user license agreement. Again, this gives exclusive, non-whatever, transferable but not revocable rights, blah, 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 to use the photos commercially and whatnot. So, but what are you thinking even in the Silicon Valley, right? The people, the companies, the startups make money with the data. So even there, the end user license agreement usually says they own all the data, they can sell it and use it and whatsoever. So not really a surprise there. In similar news, because certainly this of course was using neural networks with deep networks with training to do this face manipulation, aging and stuff like this. In similar news, neural network in glass requires no power, recognizes numbers. That is really amazing here on Hackaday. And so what this is apparently, according to the news, that this is real glass substrate. And so this is really working with, as the headline says, glass here, neural network in glass. They are not joking apparently, unless it's a fake news. So they write here, of course handwritten recognition was already done a decade ago, 2 decades ago. The basics have been in place for years, and recent increase in computing power and parallel processing has made it very practical technology and so on. And now people have done this here. So the core level, it's still a digital computer, moving bits around just like any other program. That isn't the case with a new neural network fielded by researchers from the University of Wisconsin, MIT, and Columbia. This panel of a special glass requires no electrical power and is able to recognize grayscale handwritten numbers. This is totally amazing. This is really approaching, you remember the Star Trek episode, Star Trek Next Generation, where they had some computing crystals or whatnot, and you were thinking, yeah, what a bloody joke. So of course we are not there yet, and maybe in general, independently of this news, for increasing computing power and processing speed and everything, maybe stuff will become more optical in the future. Think 10, 20, 30, 50, 40 years. But this is, in my opinion, probably the first step, or at least a proof of concept on just the base level of this. So apparently you can even see contains precise controlled inclusions such as air holes and impurities such as graphene or other materials. Where light strikes the glass, complex wave patterns occur and light becomes more intense in one of the 10 areas of the glass. Each of those areas correspond to the digit. For example, here are 2 examples of patterns of light recognizing 2 on the glass, and here apparently you can see here the kind of light distribution there on this medium. And yeah, certainly pretty interesting stuff if you ask me. Certainly interesting development and ideas and creativity. Dave says, I was telling my coworkers that if you aren't paying for a service, you are the product, and quite baffled how many programmers have a blind spot when it comes to Google. Yeah, that's what we have our IT news here for. And speaking of which, IT news, iOS 13 bug in beta allows to access passwords. Of course, the usual German news has it. I anyway translate here. So apparently you just need to tap a little bit. I've not really read this. There's a YouTube video, but whatever. And so you need their. So of course, funny, there beta versions are usually unstable and contain bugs. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Even the non-beta versions contain bugs and are unstable. But what surprises me, why this is news, is what surprises me is that Apple after 10 years of iOS and soon, what is it, over 20 years soon of approaching 20 years of macOS, that they still managed to slip such bugs into the code base. I really wonder how randomly they changed their code, that they had, what surprises me already, they had already so many bugs over the years. For sure 5 if not 10 different bugs. You swipe a little bit around like emergency call, back and forth and swipe and whatnot, camera app and such, and then you unlock. You really wonder what kind of code construction that is that allows such bugs to appear. And what wonders me really is, after so many bugs Apple had already with this kind of unlocking, that they managed to apparently introduce such a bug again. It's possible that yada, something in the night whatsoever. And they call out here that apparently before that developers like ourselves, right, warned for using Apple's betas due to sometimes very heavy problems with app compatibility and iCloud data loss, which is here iOS 13 and macOS 10.15. Developers like ourselves warn people from using public betas. And this is not a joke, as we have here some of our companies, some own data. And I'm really surprised that in the meantime, I usually often only occasionally sometimes install the beta. I was never really motivated, especially as often it doesn't allow you to upgrade. So even if you are on the beta, what really pisses me really off is that you can't switch from the beta to the golden master and then continue updates. What is so difficult with this? If I'm already testing the beta and doing development and testing and whatnot, I don't want to reinstall with the golden official master. I really wonder why Apple cannot have a update pass straight from the beta to the release series. It should be totally not an issue, right? One data update. I really don't understand what the problem is. And also 1 year I lost all my data because of, what was it, Sierra or High Sierra or whatnot. Anyway, and I'm really wondering, so I'm zero motivated. Already you have heard from me, all the regular versions have so many bugs. I post so many tweets on Instagram and YouTube videos, so many peak bugs, even in the 0.5 release of the stable release series there. And I would never think to install the beta, and yet our small company, we had already multiple emails of people telling us the app doesn't start with latest beta of 10.15, and this was, by the way, a symbol. This was NS magnifier. We had some proof of concept code to use some NS magnifier, this magnification glass for the color picker, that we didn't even use in production. That was even, so the code was not even there. So because the code was in some static const, if something test code that was static const false, and the code was not even there. And I'm completely surprised that the Objective-C symbol stuff didn't or retain the symbol. So there was a symbol reference to this NS magnification glass something that Apple apparently removed, and so our app wasn't starting because of this one stupid symbol reference that we didn't even really intend to have in there. And we had multiple of those emails, and then even people continuing to tell us that it's not working stable. But yeah, excuse me, it's a beta release. We have enough to reverse engineer. We're not really interested in testing Apple's beta release stuff. So yeah, even at our small company, people using this already, which is totally crazy. Don't do this, please, really not. And don't waste developers' time sending them bug reports for beta versions. They will eventually find out sooner than later themselves. And even if you get a new version that is already adapted a little bit, stop wasting the developer's time. If it's unstable, you intentionally, on your own free will, has installed a beta version from Apple. And don't expect this to be stable. This is ridiculous. In similar news, sales of iPhones down on a year-to-year basis despite popularity of iPhone XR. This news is newsworthy in two regards. First regard, that the iPhone XR is the most popular or something in the US. Of course, exactly showing here what I said. So I'm not the only one who thinks the iPhone X is so overpriced that even actually, where's my Samsung's over there anyway. So yeah, even we as a developer are not interested in this overpriced phone, especially if you drop it sometimes, and EU pricing is even 15% higher and stuff like this. And yeah, so twofold, not only down year to year, but also iPhone XR is apparently very popular, which is in many ways, display is not amazing and so on, cost down and not, so it's basically like last year's model a little bit in some ways. So yeah, no shit, Sherlock, people are not interested in the most overpriced phones. Also I think there was some news where people were asked what phones they were running, and many people couldn't even tell the model because. But this is not even to blame the user. I'm also not interested. The iPhone is so boring. It's just the same thing each and every year, a rounded rectangle. I would also not be too interested in the precise model. In the same news, and then we are maybe done with Apple news, is that iPhone loyalty falls at an all-time low. And no surprise here. So this just underlines when people flame bomb with me that no, the cables are amazing, although they constantly break. By the way, PS, not at me, only with my wife and friends and family. My cables are usually amazing, but most people use them and do not store them pristinely on the desk. And yeah, glued-in batteries, failing batteries, soldered SSDs. And although this is iPhone loyalty, I would not be surprised if Mac loyalty is the same. Also, I think it's not very good for Apple, this recurring theme that every second year they have this boring S model that is barely different and only a little bit faster. And the same for the Macs. thermal throttling, overpriced. The last Mac Pro was a fail. The new Mac Pro is an overpriced cheese grater joke. And yeah, peak bugs and so on and so on. I wanted to underline that I am not alone here and telling you random nonsense stories. That is a real thing that other people, apparently, according to this news, may or may not be agreeing to. In more amazing news, brains scale better than CPUs, so Intel is building brains. Also not too much of an surprise, as Intel was not the best in building CPUs the last years. Peak bugs also at Intel, security vulnerabilities, failing process node shrinks that they can't get under control, and the GL2 acceptable levels. And yeah, so now they switch to building CPUs, building brains. I hope not with too many vulnerabilities and bugs, obviously. And of course, this probably means like kind of neural network kind of stuff. Also, they have already some special SKUs with FPGA inside, in case you think there are some Xeons with FPGA edition out there. And so now they apparently are building neuromorphic, or so they call it, engineering building machines that mimics the function of organic brains in hardware as well as software, becoming more and more prominent. It sounds very much like neural networks. Not really sure if there is a huge difference to neural networks. If you have the inside knowledge, I only compiled. I was busy this week, can't read here everything. But where traditional computers work running numbers through optimized pipeline, neuromorphic hardware performs calculations using artificial neurons. So sounds to me like 100% like neural networks, like everywhere, that communicate with each other here. No surprise there. That is a workflow that's highly specialized for specific applications, much like neural neurons. It mimics in function, so you likely won't replace conventional computers, and so on. However, something provides handle task organic brains, Excel much more efficiently conventional. By the way, I should point out, so for those who do not know this, neural networks are just a huge collection of a huge stack of numbers where all, for example, you have pixel data or other kind of like the handwritten numbers, all kinds of data, sound data, word data. And so if you think so far today, where we have even with deep networks, this basically is just huge mountains of numbers, and you have input data, input layers and output layers, and you just throw all your data there, and mostly this is just multiplying and or conditionals. So you just multiply all those input numbers with these neurons that are connected and process one layer after the other layer, depending how deep this are and such, how connected and whatnot. So basically this is just statistics, right? And I would argue, and this is also the problem with this kind of neural networks, that you cannot classically debug this. Also, if you train this, like the handwritten recognition here that we had here in this glass or something. So this is exactly a nice visualization. This is all most of this neural network stuff functions. And if you have more insight or comments, always leave them below. But just as a reminder, right? So you train this with a lot of training data, and then you have a slightly different written 2, and the output could still be 3, right? Because the way the statistic numbers, this just propagates through all the stacks of numbers. And if this does not match something similar to the training input data, this might very well also say that this is a 3 or 8 or 6 or anything else in between. And this is why I think also we should, first of all, we computer scientists should more call this out, like, hey, artificial intelligence, this is not really intelligence. This is for the most part, this is statistic, and also like statistically trained data sets. And if you rely on a self-driving Tesla, and this is recognizing here with all the input layers, some camera and distance sensors and whatnot, and this can make mistakes, right? If the input data is vastly different from anything that was trained before, this can do any kind of erratic behavior, which I think computer scientists we should much more often call out, because many people, especially normal people and politicians, they always think this is magic and amazing. This is as error prone as other computer programs, and we should probably not necessarily depend our lives on those or trust our lives with this kind of statistic data models. Comments in the audience. Dave, modern AI is one step above data mining techniques I learned at university back in 2006, 2007, yeah. You know, there's a software called Behaviour. If you use a piece of software, you can map out the neural, you can map out the neural network of data sets. Yes, there's open source stuff. They can certainly, even Facebook and whatnot, released open source. So there are a lot of literature, and I've read already neural network stuff in 20 years ago, when even before we started computer science. I was reading about exactly this kind of neural network stuff, just that back in the day there was a Pentium and DSPs, and now we just have much faster computers. Speaking about much faster computers and neural network, Elon Musk of all unveils Neuralink, Neuralink's plan for brain reading threads and a robot to insert them. So this is completely crazy and nuts. In my opinion also, Elon Musk is a little bit over-promising and under-delivering, and so basically he's mostly a good vaporware seller. I mean, some stuff that he's doing is also a little bit stupid in my opinion, like his tunnel company. Also, what I personally find really stupid is his flamethrower shit that he has done with the Boring Company. This is not a flamethrower. That, and they also see calling it not a flamethrower to avoid shipping regulations or whatnot is also really a dick move from a serious company. Either there are shipping regulations or they're not. You can't call a flamethrower not a flamethrower. But anyway, also he wants to save the planet and whatnot, and then he's selling unnecessary, wasteful flamethrowers that are not usable for much. But anyway, so I wonder a little bit that he cannot. First of all, also Tesla apparently, we maybe had this in other news, but maybe we probably have this soon in other news, in next weeks or next months. Tesla, as far as I read, is also in quite some financial struggles, and I wonder a little bit with all the promises Elon Musk made, not only at Tesla, also with SpaceX. Of course, those companies are amazing. However, he didn't start most of them, right? SpaceX was started by other people, so he only took it over or invested in did I say Tesla? Invested in Tesla, took it over, kind of. So Tesla is not his creation, right? He had also, even PayPal was not sure. So he did PayPal before, or PayPal. Not sure if he started this. So there was PayPal and XXX or something, but not even sure if he founded PayPal or whatever. And certainly PayPal also. Anyway, I digress. And he's already, my point being, he is doing already so much stuff. In my opinion, he probably should rather focus on SpaceX and Tesla, which are already amazing enough. And I don't want to downplay it, right? Of course, these are huge achievements, just that they are not yet the most amazing running. Maybe SpaceX at this point is better running than Tesla, because on the mainstream news that I saw, the financial pressure on Tesla appears to be quite large. So this will be interesting to see how this turns out. Also, personally, I'm not the greatest fan about Teslas, for other reasons that probably I should mention already a little bit, but probably save for another live stream. So yeah, this latest stuff, I really wonder, does he really need to do so much stuff? He also often looks a little bit overstressed and under-relaxed, and maybe he should settle down a little bit and take a holiday. Otherwise, not sure if some people maybe have a little bit too much going on. Also, what life is it, right? Does he even have a life if he is only working day and night? I read stories he even slept in the Tesla factory already due to assembly line setup issues. So yeah, the latest scary, yeah, so much to that. He's maybe doing too much. And his latest, do you really want to get a neural implant, Neuralink, from someone who has a struggling electric company and a tunnel company, and I don't know, maybe it's a little bit, because the reason is he's so overworked and overstressed. Of course, with such kind of leadership, mistakes happen, right? Easier if quicker and easier than of a leader, a manager who has enough time to dedicate to this company. Although, of course, all the stuff will be developed by other people. It's not like Elon Musk is developing these neural implants himself, but with such kind of stressed out leaders, in my opinion, mistakes are easier made, stuff pushed to market that is not ready, and so on. So apparently there is some big advancements in flexible threads which are less likely to damage the brain. So apparently these are some flexible threads, thinner than a human hair, that some robot here, apparently 4 to 6 micrometer in width, which makes them considerably thinner than human hair, apparently to be inserted by a robot. Apparently do they have here, you see how this looks like a USB-C thing with 3072 channels on laboratory, on the lab rat, and yeah, not really sure, do we really want this? Is this kind of development really worth it? Which I will probably take on future live streams, maybe on the second more live stream channel that you may or may not want to subscribe to if you want to listen to that kind of stuff. Because the question is, where are we heading to? I mean, right now we already have a society created. If you look on the last US elections, how interfered they were by FaceTime, Facebook ads and similar ads, and online hate speech and online flame warring and trolling. And with this kind of brain implants, Neuralinks, I don't really see this as a benefit of society when people want to enjoy life and also have do more creative things than just sitting the whole day 24/7 in an office and do IT and live stream on YouTube and stuff. So you're not really sure if this is amazing. If people really want to walk around with some brain Neuralink, in my opinion, really scary, like Matrix, like kind of all these other science fiction films, you name it, science fiction movies. So yeah, USB-C connected brain implant with flexible threads, you name it, Elon Musk's latest and greatest company. I'm not the most motivated to sign up for this, but this is probably a topic for another video. Leave me in the comments below. So curious to know what you think about this stuff. Would you get this into your brain? Do you find this amazing? Are you looking forward to such a connected brain future? I'm not sure. Breaking the heat index as usual. What is this, by the way? This belongs there. Amazon offers, in similar news, Amazon offers $10 a day. This probably should have been slightly sorted more earlier, whatever. $10 a day for Prime shoppers who hand over the data, and apparently millions of people have done this. 48-hour marketing blitz on Monday, earning $10 credit if you let Amazon track the websites you visit, which is of course similar. There you see the outcry, Russian FaceApp app and Amazon tracking all your websites for then $10. There is the outcry. This is crazy how much people there. You see people already voluntarily sell their online life to Amazon just for a mere $10. It is crazy. I have no words that people intentionally let companies spy as much on them for just a small credit. Yeah, in my opinion, this really needs to stop. We are so destroying our society. This is crazy, and in all the combination with data collection and all this kind of stuff. And yeah. So in similar news, breaking the heat index, US heat wave has to skyrocket as global warming study suggests, and just the recurring theme here as an outro to motivate all of you to keep this in mind and also work a little bit and contribute to a better future, because yeah, right now heat records also so many. Why do we have this here? Because there are so many climate change deniers. And for those climate deniers who say, but I like summer heat and relax in the sunshine, then I have to say, first of all, in previous times we had already enough sunshine, and this too much heat certainly causes more problems than a little bit sunshine holiday, especially in those US states where people do not live, like Texas, where you don't leave the house and sit the whole day and night with aircon in a closed house. This is not a heat wave I need for some summer holiday. And with this heat waves also come huge storms, tornadoes, weather swings, you name it. So Don't be one of those who says it doesn't exist or it is nice to have sunshine, because this really sucks for the next decades to come. In similar news, Jeff Bezos says, I spent $1 million on space because we are destroying Earth. Sorry for this depressive outlook here, but that is just the news. I can't change them. I'm just a messenger. So he's spending 125 billion according to Bloomberg Billionaires Index on net worth, not spent. And why it's important, he says. Also, what is important? Paying taxes for those people like Amazon and tax evasion. If they would pay the fair share of tax, not only would they not have 125 billion, which of course they can have nothing against this, but at least pay a fair share of taxes all over the world, from Germany, France, UK and US, and don't bring it to some ocean islands somewhere, because this taxes are certainly very much needed for all the infrastructure, schools, hospitals and public transport, you name it. With that, it is the quick rush of today's, or 2 weeks, this week's IT news and bits and pieces here. A little bit a horror show as usual, not only from the security standpoint, but also from the environmental standpoint. Fun fact, not so fun fact, but fun fact, maybe just try to use a little bit less energy. We also privately, I always for 20 years have already switched off more stuff, except for which, by the way, we can do already as an outro here. Also, by the way, this was an LED light, because LED light and recycle and whatnot, use energy efficient PCs, maybe don't power on your SGI Octane as often. And I hope you enjoyed the summary of this news. I hope a lot of stuff was interesting, especially the Neuralink, let's open this up, Neuralink, but also other stuff, including but not limited to this NES stuff here. And I hope you learned something. Also, creative use of undefined behavior, which we, by the way, can also continue with in Voodoo and Rendition and, by the way, PS3. So, also, by the way, PS3 already implemented IOCTLs for the hardware cursor the other day, but I need to finish wiring up this into the X driver, so much to using undefined behavior. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. We surpassed also 3,300 subscribers, which is certainly totally amazing. Thanks to everyone for being here, sharing, commenting. Much appreciated for all the work to come. And yeah, see you soon for next video and new news.